to kind of get things rolling here, I'm coming into this presentation assuming that folks have some familiarity with our technology, our field technology, probably ArcGIS Collector. But if you look at this slide here, you can see the kinds of functionality that we design our field applications around the idea of being able to plan for a field operation, navigate to some place in the field, be able to explore and understand information that's being either taken out into the field with you in a disconnected fashion or when you are connected. Be able to capture data, and this is probably where most of you are most familiar with ArcGIS Collector. Collector was actually the first field app that we built. It was released in 2014. Be able to monitor perhaps field crews. This is a capability we added a couple of years ago in the form of ArcGIS Tracker. And then just coordination of work of field workers using either the workforce in addition to Tracker and Explorer. So this is kind of the way things have been for a while. But they've changed in the sense that we still have the same kind of design criteria. We still want to be able to plan, navigate, understand, capture, monitor, and coordinate. But the apps that how we do that is it's being changed right now. And that's really kind of what I'm going to be focusing on today. And the way that this has worked out is that we've taken Collector, Explorer, Tracker, Workforce, and Navigator, and we are in the process of merging them together. And the reason we're doing this, there's a number of reasons. One, it was a request from our users that were a little frustrated working with their field crews and that they had to download all these different apps if they were working in a coordinated fashion. So if they were just using ArcGIS Collector, that was fairly simple. It's one app you downloaded. But if you've got a full workflow to doing all the plan, navigation, all that stuff, you had a bunch of apps that you were having to install, and the apps could talk to one another. But it was kind of a hassle for folks to be able to coordinate and get everybody to download all the apps they may have needed. So there was requests from the user community to try to simplify this whole model. And so that's from what the users have asked us to do, but this also has been a big problem within Esri software development in that we have these different products and trying to have different teams of people who are doing the software development to work together in a coordinated fashion was kind of a problem. And it often surfaced in the way that we would have some versions get out of sync from one product for other, and with other products that might be part of the workflow. So there was this desire to kind of bring everything back together, and that's what we've done. So the Field Maps app, which was introduced last summer at the user conference in its beta form, it became a real product in the last December's release. And it's still a work in progress in the sense that we haven't migrated all of those 5 apps into the currently released version of Field Maps. So the ones that have been migrated is Explorer, Collector, and Tracker. And that's why if you look at this slide, the text in white are the pieces that have been done. The other 2 pieces being Workforce and Navigator will be released later this year. So by the end of the year, we'll have all 5 pieces in the software. I think it actually will happen earlier than that, but that's what's going on. So we'll still have the same design functionality, right? Plan, navigate, understand, capture, monitor, and coordinate. But now instead of having 5 different apps, we're going to have 1. So it's one app to deploy and learn. So it should be an easier environment for folks to work with. It's one place to sign in, so you don't have to have, for every one of those apps, you don't have to sign in individually. So it'll be one load up. Now, the interesting thing about the sign up, for those of you that have perhaps been involved with all these different components, is that they all had slightly different licensing and how they activated. So if you were doing data collection, you needed to have a user type in either ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise that allowed you to edit data. So that's like a field worker user type, or a creator user type, or a professional user type. So for those of you who get involved in all the licensing aspects, you had to have one of those in order to use Collector for gathering data. But if you were an Explorer user, it'd be great if you had a user ID and password for ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS, but it wasn't required. So you could have anonymous users of Explorer. With Tracker, you definitely had to have a user ID and password for either ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. And you also had to have on the add-on user extension for the Tracker license. And that was because, with regards to Tracker, Esri has to pay a royalty based on the number of we have to pay another company royalty on some aspect of the Tracker technology. So that's why there was an additional cost for that. So with field maps, depending upon how you log in and what your administrators have given you permission to do, the application will behave slightly different. So the nice thing about this is we haven't changed anything with regards to capability with what you've had. So if you were a Collector user and you had a Tracker extension, that will be recognized in the field maps application. But let's say you log in and you don't have the ability to edit data, then you're not going to get exposure to the Collector parts of the functionality. So for users stepping into field maps, it should be pretty seamless. It's a bit more complicated on the administration side of your portal accounts. Those folks have to, pay attention to what licensing has been made available on an individual basis for what capability they need to have. Okay, so other benefits to this whole effort is to eliminate duplication of offline content. You can have a map do all of these different aspects of it. Smaller footprint, it's one download rather than 5. And consistency across apps, which is a big thing from a development standpoint. So essentially we took those teams that were separately developing the apps and made them one big team. So they're all working together and pulling the oars at the same rhythm, so to speak. If we look over here on the screen, you'll notice that our ArcGIS field maps, the line sign in with ArcGIS Online, sign in with Enterprise. So those are for where you have user accounts. If you hit skip and you don't sign in, then you're going to have a functionality equivalent to what was in Explorer. So with the December release, these are the functionality that was delivered. Map viewing, there are additional capabilities here that were not present in the other older technologies or applications. So for instance, support for indoor maps is something that I'll show you a little demo on that here in a little bit, but that was something that we added in as part of this new release, and also full support for the arcade scripting language, which gives you a lot of power for managing attribute rules. Map Markup was something that was available in Explorer, but was not available in Collector. So there are now additional capabilities that you may not have seen in those other individual applications. The high accuracy data collection, so that's connecting to other higher accuracy GPS data sources. And so that is the continuation of what we did previously with collector as well. Smart forms. So now one addition with the collector aspect of things is you now have forms that for filling in data that are smart in the sense that as you answer one of the questions in a form, it will affect how the other questions are presented to you. So that's something for those of you who've worked with Survey 123, that's been a real powerful tool in that application. But we've brought aspects of that into the collector experience as well. All right, keep moving on here. Let's see. So other things, touched on most of these things here, other than the fact that I don't know if you can see it in the text. I should have changed the color, but so the whole workforce aspect, the workforce application, eventually, as I pointed out, will be in there by the end of the year, as well as turn-by-turn navigation. But the other new thing that's here is there's a back office web app. So there now is this web companion to the field maps that allows you to use a web interface to design and deploy your web maps. It's very similar kind of experience that you may, for those of you who've worked with Survey 123, you know that the Survey 123 has a web interface that allows you to design the surveys that you're going to deploy in the field. Same idea here. Basically, there's a web application that will help you to design and deploy your field operations. So you don't actually have to have like Pro to do any of this if you don't need to. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, I already touched on it, but basically the big message here is that what licensing you needed to work with Collector, Explorer, or Tracker is still intact with the new field maps. It just detects what kind of capabilities you have based on your login ID if you have one. So again, I've already kind of touched on this. If you've got more questions about it, we can talk for sure. A few things before we jump into the first demo here. A few of these things I will bring out that you haven't seen before, like in Collector, is interfacing with the arcade language is a big capability that I think folks can take advantage of. And that will be expanded on. If you're not familiar with arcade, it's our across the platform scripting environment, which works on basically everything. As we make new releases, we are adding arcade into each product's capability. A few other things to note. Base map bookmarks, all the things that are across the platform they use, they'll come in as well. When we get to turn-by-turn directions, you don't have to use Navigator, which is Esri's turn-by-turn environment, but you can also use Google and Apple. So I think we'll jump into a demo or a little video here real quick. Map Markup, for those of you who've used Explorer, you're probably familiar with this. If you're just a collector user, you're probably not aware of it. It is now something that's been added into the new field maps across the board. So with that, I'm gonna, what I've done, just for sake of trying to do this presentation quickly, is I've gathered little snippets of videos on different aspects I think that are important for you to see. So I'm gonna play these videos, and I'll mute myself so it doesn't come back through my microphone here, but I'll let this run. This is probably the longest one, takes about 3 minutes or so.
You'll notice in the map browsing screen that I have several different sections, starting with the current map at the very top. This section is the first thing you see because most people just want to jump back into the map that they've been working in. The next section down is the on-device section. Here you'll find any maps that have been downloaded onto your device from ArcGIS or sideloaded onto your device some other way. This is also where you'll find your tracks and the card that allows you to enable location tracking. These maps are available to you even when you don't have a data connection. After that, I have my favorites. These are maps I've marked as a favorite when searching within field maps or anywhere else on ArcGIS. These can be map packages or web maps, including web maps with offline areas. At the bottom, you'll see that I have my maps. These are the maps that I own. And below that, you would see any groups that you're a member of, but I'm not a member of any groups, so nothing shows up there for me. You can also search for web maps and offline map packages that you have access to across your organization or across all of ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. One of the new features of field maps is that you can further refine the search by filtering for maps that are read-only or editable now that you can potentially be working with both types of map. If a map is offline capable, you can define your own custom offline area for the place that you're about to visit. And once you choose a map, you have all the beautiful cartography and functionality of the reference layers and operational layers that have been included in the map. Mobile workers can show or hide layers, pan and zoom, all the functionality you've come to know and love in Explorer and Collector. Field Maps also now supports group layers, allowing map authors to organize the layers in their map for cleaner and easier map viewing on a mobile device. Another new piece of functionality is that if the map has floor-aware layers, for example, if it's been configured for use with ArcGIS indoors, like this map has, you'll see a floor picker show up in your map and you can move between floors using it. One piece of functionality that Explorer users have had for a while that might be new to Collector users is Map Markup. Markup is simply a way to take notes on a map. You can use simple tools to call out areas on the map and add notes to them. Anyone can create markup because it's not changing or editing anything within the map itself. The markup layer sits on top of the map and is separate from the map. It's actually stored locally on your device and is persistent across maps. Markup is a great way to take notes for yourself for future reference, or a way to share a note about a place with other coworkers in the field or folks back in the office. One final improvement to show is the Compass tool. The Compass tool helps mobile workers find nearby assets, and previously, it only told you a basic cardinal direction towards the asset. Now, available by popular request, it gives users the actual compass bearing and distance from their location to the asset.
So a few more things about the collector aspect of this. It's got all the capabilities that were there in the first system, plus some additional things that we've added on, like the markup. We've improved the app linking to other applications that you may have on your system. The GPS capture update, so we've extended the higher accuracy GPS capability that's there. A few more notes about that. If you need better GPS, you can connect external GPS devices to your whatever mobile platform you've got. So we support that just like we did previously in the earlier releases. A few things about one very common workflow dealing with inspections is that we now are supporting a new versioning model called branch versioning, which is if you're connecting with an enterprise rather than use ArcGIS Online, you can get access to a branch version. So branch versioning is a replacement for traditional versioning in that we can use it in a web service environment. So it's a bit more designed for these experiences when you're not connected to your native network. Now, if you are connected to your native network, you can still use traditional versioning as well, but really branch versioning is where we're uh, focusing most people on too. So we touched a little bit about smart forms. So this new capability of having your forms as you answer questions have the form itself actually change with it. So there's quite a bit of detail about that, which I just don't have time to dig into. But I do have another little video here.
Field Maps allows you to collect data on a map enabled for editing using the blue Add button. When collecting data, you can select a feature template and add information by filling out smart forms. For those migrating over from ArcGIS Collector and ArcGIS Explorer, viewing maps in Field Maps works the exact same way. The Field Maps Overflow menu is where you can change your base map, access bookmarks, view your map legend, and measure between points on your map. You can also share maps with others using the Share Map tool. The Field Maps Layers menu is where you can see all the layers in your map. These layers can be toggled on or off to show or hide them. Field Maps.
So the last major area I'm going to talk about here is really the functionality that came across from Tracker. So this is a device for keeping track of field crew folks. It is not something that can be enabled by anybody but the field worker. And this is really important to Jack Dangerman. He didn't want to have a kind of a big brother aspect of this. So the field worker always has the ability to turn this on or off. Their boss can't force this to be turned on. And that's what made him comfortable with this whole approach. But basically, it's a way of keeping track of where the field crew is. And it does that in a couple different feature layers that get populated in either ArcGIS Online or in your enterprise. So I've got a little video of this.
The first thing you'll notice is just how simple the interface can be in this configuration. If there were any concerns about merging the simplicity of the tracker experience into the more capable and robust Field Maps mobile app, hopefully this will alleviate some of those concerns. The interface can be extremely simple for those mobile workers who only need field maps to turn location sharing on and off. 90% of what our mobile users need to do is right here, turn location tracking on and off. When on, those two layers that I mentioned earlier, my last known location and my location history, are updated inside ArcGIS. Once this is on, I will start showing up in any dashboards or maps that I've been added to. When I turn on location tracking, I can choose the tracking duration, after which tracking will automatically stop, for example at the end of an 8-hour shift, or I can leave it on until I manually turn it off. A recent addition to Field Maps is the ability to turn location tracking on and off using an Apple Watch, further simplifying the experience for mobile workers. Using this functionality, I can set Field Maps as a complication on my watch face so I have access to it at all times. The first thing you'll
So a couple, few slides to finish up with. As I alluded to earlier, there's a lot more capability now with using app linking. So app linking is how on your devices you have one app influence the execution of another app. So we've added a few things here so that you can issue, instructions to somebody through an email or a text that would automatically, when they click on the link in their email or text, it would automatically start up the appropriate application. And so we've added quite a bit of capability onto this, and I think there's going to be quite a bit more stuff being added over the next few years, potentially with the advent of using webhook technology as well. So lastly, let's go to this last slide. I've already talked about this, but again, this is something new. If you've just been a collector user, there's the new web app companion that goes along with this. So basically, you log in to either the Enterprise or the ArcGIS Online, and it starts a web app that allows you to design the web maps directly without having to like work on the layers and everything in Pro and uploading it. So it's a little, I think, easier for folks to implement than having to learn Pro. And lastly, what about the existing stuff? Well, the existing apps, Explorer, Collector, and Tracker, they are still supported through the rest of this year, but they will be deprecated starting next year. The experience I've been hearing from folks and my own personal experience is that just my web maps that I had for using a collector just work in field maps. So it should be a fairly transparent transition. So with that, I'm going to open up to questions.